The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Jenna Villani. I'm the Executive Director of Alumni Relations here at William Patterson University, and I'm excited to welcome you to today's webinar, Effective Resume Writing. During this session, you will learn helpful tips for writing an effective resume. The key to getting the job of your dreams is to create an amazing resume. An awesome resume helps you to separate yourself from the many applicants who also want your desired position. It also helps you to land an interview, which is critical to getting the job. The session will review tactics for helping your resume stand out from the rest and ensure that your resume outperforms the competition. Learn how to create a winning resume that can help you get your foot in the door. Before we get started, I just want to share some details on how this will work today. So first off, we welcome questions. So feel free to type your questions into the chat questions box throughout the webinar, and we'll take breaks throughout the presentation to answer them. Second, please note that all attendee microphones are muted throughout the presentation. So again, just use that chat function to ask any questions. And lastly, we'll follow up via email to share some materials from today's program. So now we'll go ahead and introduce today's speaker. Jenny Nasenjuk has been working in career development and advisement since 2007, with a primary focus on assisting students to gain the skills and competencies necessary to be successful and accomplish their goals. Currently an assistant director in the Career Development Center at William Patterson University, she works one-on-one with students, creates and fosters new relationships with employers from a variety of fields, and is an active member of the campus community, collaborating with many William Patterson University staff, faculty, and students. And so now I will go ahead and turn it over to Jenny.
Hello, happy Thursday. Thank you all for attending today and taking time out of your day to spend with us. I'm going to talk about resumes today. As Jenna said, please, if you have questions while I go through the presentation, type them into your chat box and we'll stop periodically to take some questions. I will make sure that when the presentation is over that Jenna has both the presentation and what we refer to as our career toolbox, which I'm going to reference during the presentation, and I'll have those resources for you. The career toolbox can also be found on the career development website through the William Patterson University website, but we can talk a little bit more about that later. So, there we go. So the purpose of a resume. So when you apply for opportunities, whether it is jobs, promotions, if you are a recent grad and you're applying for postgraduate internships, you're going to need a resume. And the purpose of the resume is that this is your calling card. It is a tool that markets you as a professional. It's a summary of your skills, your experiences, the things that you've accomplished in your professional life. And it really provides the employer with a picture of who you are as a professional. So all of the details that are included in your resume are going to be about either your experience, whether it's work, volunteer, freelance, your education. It's not going to be about you personally. We're not going to include hobbies. We're not going to include the things that you do on the weekends for fun. We're not going to talk about our pets. Okay, this is who you are as a professional. So here's a list of the components, and I'm going to go through some more detail, but just to get started, these are the kind of the basic things that you want to make sure are included on your resume. So we want to make sure you have your name and contact information, an objective or a profile of yourself, your education, any related experience. If you don't have related experience, don't worry, that's okay. We'll talk about that in a minute. Any additional experience that's not related. If you've done presentations or had articles published, we want to include those. Any research you've done, if you've done it, any leadership experience, volunteer work, and certainly your skills. There's a couple of other things that I'm going to mention throughout the presentation that aren't on this list that are optional, and some of these are optional too, so you can pick and choose, but there are a few that are mandatory, and that's going to be your name and contact, your education, your experience, and your skills. So let's start with our name and contact information. We want to make sure that you put your first and last name. If you have a common first and last name, you are either going to want to include your full middle name or your middle initial. So if your name is Mark Smith, it's pretty common, you may want to include your middle name. You want to have a mailing address. If you are uncomfortable putting your entire mailing address, meaning your street address, you can stick with city, state, and zip code. A phone number with a voicemail that you check regularly, an email address that you check regularly, and a LinkedIn profile link. So let's talk about voicemail messages. Make sure that the phone number you're putting on here is something where you do check the voicemail regularly. So if some of you have a home phone number and a cell phone number, whichever one you check the voicemail on more frequently is the phone number you want to put on. You do not need to include both phone numbers. The voicemail message needs to be professional. I really recommend something along the lines of, "Hi, you've reached Jenny. I can't get to my phone right now. Please leave a message with the date that you called and the purpose of your call, and I will return your message as soon as possible. Thank you and have a great day." We really want to stay away from including music, jokes, not identifying yourself, okay? If for some reason you are uncomfortable identifying yourself on your voicemail message, you can say, "Hi, you've reached 973-720-3291. Please leave a message and I will get back to you shortly." If that still makes you uncomfortable, you can use the pre-recorded message that your phone comes with. I don't really recommend it. Employers really like to know that they've reached an actual person. So I would recommend recording something. Your email address needs to be professional. If you are a recent graduate, I do not recommend continuing to use your William Patterson email address. At some point in the next 6 to 12 months, you will most likely lose that email address. So I really recommend creating a professional email address for yourself with either Yahoo, Hotmail, Gmail, any of the free services. And as you can see from our example here, your best bet is to stick with first and last name dash last name, first name dot last name dash first name, something that just identifies you. Quick and easy. And then you want to put your LinkedIn profile link, and you can just copy this right out of your LinkedIn profile. If you do not have a LinkedIn profile, I recommend that you consider creating one. And I recommend waiting until you've completed your resume, because to build the profile, the best way to start is to copy and paste your information out of your resume and into that profile. The next piece of this is an objective. So what you see here is an image from our career toolbox. And the career toolbox is a 60-page PDF that includes several different sections on several different topics. So it includes resumes, cover letters, interviewing skills, getting started with LinkedIn, and some additional resources. This is the image from that toolbox, and I'll show you the whole toolbox in a few minutes. But what an objective does is it lets the reader know exactly what kind of opportunity you're looking for. So if you are looking for a full-time position, a part-time position, an internship, but you want to be very specific, and you're going to tailor your objective to each opportunity that you apply for. And you can see here at the bottom examples of targeted objectives. So you can use some description of yourself. You don't have to. So seeking to contribute skills in research design, data analysis, and report writing in a research position. So there you've listed some skills. This person has listed some skills that they have. Or focused and detail-oriented finance. This one is for a student or a manager or professional seeking a position, and you would name what type of position. Utilizing analytical and project management skills. So we're being very specific about what type of opportunity, in what field, and what skills you bring to the table. A profile is really for individuals who have related experience and who have been working in field for some time. So for example, my resume, the other thing is, quick note, is that you should update your resume approximately every 6 months just to keep it current. Okay? So I do that. I update my resume about every 6 months, and I have a profile on my resume, and it talks about what my skill sets are, what I bring to the table. It's approximately 3 sentences. It talks about my areas of expertise and some of my accomplishments. Okay, and you'll see some examples down here. Creative and detail-oriented writer with internship experience within 2 major news organizations, possesses proven ability to analyze assignments, uncover resources, and meet deadlines, has published over 15 articles in local and campus newspapers, bilingual in English and Spanish. So right off the bat, this person, the first thing the employer is reading is what this individual's skill sets are, what their past experiences, some of their accomplishments, and also that additional skill there that they're bilingual in both English and Spanish. So this is a little bit more in depth. And I really do recommend it for people who have been out in the world of work and been in a field for a little bit longer period of time and have really gotten some expertise in their field. Okay. So the next thing is going to be educational information. So we really recommend that this comes after your profile or your objective. However, I understand that there are folks out there who have been out of school for some time and that you have a lot of related experience to the field that you're looking to find a new position. If that is the case, you can move your education to the bottom of your resume, and it will come right before your skills section, which we always want to be last. So in that case, you would have either your profile or your objective, then your related experience. Okay, but in your education section, wherever it is on your resume, you want to make sure you're including the following information: the name of the institution, where it's located, when you graduated. You only need the month and year, and you don't need your start date. Employers it's not really important when you started. They just want to see that you completed your degree, especially for positions where there is a certain degree requirement. Okay. You can put the name of the college within the institution. So here you'll see Casacas College of Business, and that AACSB is an accreditation that the College of Business has that they would like included. GPA if it's over 3.0, and then your degree. And we need to know what type of degree and what was your major. So it's either a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Arts. It could be a Bachelor of Fine Arts. If you are a master's degree student, or if you have a master's degree, it's a master's of what in what, or a bachelor's of what in what. We always start all of our sections, education and any type of experience section, we start with the most recent and we work backwards. So if you obtained an undergraduate degree from William Patterson and then went on to obtain a master's degree or some type of advanced degree from, say, either Rutgers, Seton Hall, Rowan, St. Peter's, any other institution, that master's degree is going to come first because it's most recent. Okay. Now, for recent grads, I just want to add to this something optional for recent grads, if we have any on the webinar. For recent grads who really don't have either any related experience or very limited related experience, directly under your education section, you can put a heading for relevant coursework. And in that section, you would list 4 to 6 courses that are related to your major and what type of opportunity you're looking to secure. This will let employers know that you have a knowledge base in the field that you're looking to go into. I'm going to pause quickly and see if we have any questions.
We do have a few questions. So the first is it recommended to put additional credentials in the contact information section? For example, master's, certification, etc.
So if you have a credential, such as a master's degree, you can put those credentials after your name. So for example, the top of my resume says Jenny Nessinger, MA, because I have a Master of Arts degree. If you have an MBA, if you have a law degree or Esquire, something like that, yes. But what you really want to do is list those advanced degrees or those credentials under your education, or you can put them in your profile.
Okay, great. Next question is, if you've been out of the workforce for some time and are older, should you put the date of graduation on the resume?
So I always tell my students this, and anybody that I speak to about resumes, a resume is a representation of you, and you have to be comfortable with the information that's on it. If you are uncomfortable putting your date of graduation, you do not have to put it.
Okay, great. The next question, there's multiple parts to this question, so I'll read them one at a time. So the first is, how do you feel about websites that scan your resume And hold on, sorry. But scan your resume and tell you the percent chance your resume will be selected. Is it more common for resumes to go past the computer before it's seen by a person?
It depends on the company. So there is something out there called ATS systems. These are applicant tracking systems. And what they do is they scan resumes for keywords. And we're going to talk about keywords in a few minutes as we get a little bit further into the presentation. It's scanning, those ATS systems are scanning your resume for keywords. And if your resume matches with those keywords or enough of those keywords, then it's moving past the ATS system and reaching an actual person, a recruiter, a hiring manager, a department head, whoever the designated person is. I personally have never used one. When we do our searches at William Patterson, we read all of the resumes. I'm not a fan of ATS systems, but I do understand why they're used. If you think of large organizations who are getting hundreds and hundreds of resumes for one position, they have to do something to weed out applicants that are not qualified. I'm not really a fan of ATS systems, but they do exist, and we have to kind of work around them. And the best course of action is really to tailor your resume to each opportunity that you're applying for, to make sure that you're including the keywords from the job description.
Great. And then the last piece of this question, which you may address later, is how does formatting on your resume play a role in this system?
I'm going to talk about formatting, but if your resume isn't a template of any kind, so if you go into Microsoft Word and you choose a template, you're most likely not going to make it past the ATS system. We really recommend a blank Word document and typing into it. Stay away from borders, stay away from borders of any kind. So adding that border line underneath your contact information after each of your sections. Type your information into a blank Word document. Stick with traditional fonts, and stay away from templates, and that will help.
Okay, great. So we have 3 more questions. Do you want to take them now, or you want to hold them till a little bit later in the program?
Are they relevant to the pieces of the resume we have already touched on?
Yes, they are.
Then let's do them now.
Okay, great. So the first is, if recent grads shouldn't include profile, what should go in its place?
An objective statement.
Okay, great. Would it be necessary to list an associate's degree if you also have a bachelor's degree?
Yes, we do recommend it. It's an accomplishment. You worked hard for that associate's degree. Be proud of it.
Great. And the last question is, where should you put non-credit certificates?
You can put them under your non-credit certificates. You can add a section, and you can put it in one of 2 places. You can put it after your education, or you can put it at the bottom above your skills section. You can put it as professional development. And what you would do is list the name of the certificate and the year that you received it.
Okay, one more question just came in that's relevant to this. I am older. Should I put my years after all the jobs?
For the jobs, yes. Part of that is that employers want to see, especially if you were in a position for a lengthy period of time, it shows longevity, it shows dedication to an organization, it shows loyalty, and that's very important. We usually only go back, and I'll talk about this in the experience section, which we're going to move on to now. When we include experiences, we usually go back about 10 years, unless you were in a position for 15 years or 20 years. But yes, you would want to, especially if you were with one organization for, say, 15 years and you held multiple roles where you kind of worked your way up and had increasing levels of responsibility.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so let's move on and talk about experience. So there's a couple of different experiences that you're going to put on your resume. The first, if you have it, is always going to be your related experience. Now, if all of your experience is related, you're just going to label this experience. Okay, so as you can see on the sample here, this person has a degree in marketing, and they have put related experience and work experience. I typically recommend related experience and additional experience as headings. But what you want to make sure that you're including is the name of the organization, where they're located, your date range, month and year to month and year. We don't need exact dates, and your position title. Start with your most recent and work backwards. So if you're currently in a position, that's always going to be first. If you have recently left a position, whether it's voluntary or not, and for those of you where it's not, I'm sorry to hear that. Our department can assist you with your resume so that you can find new opportunities. So you'll start with what you're currently doing or what you have done most recently, and then you work backwards, again, about 10 to 15 years. The most important part of your experience section, whether it's related, additional, whether it's volunteer experience, leadership experience, is going to be your bullet pointed descriptions, okay? So, or what we call accomplishment statements. And this is details about what you did in your position. They need to start with action verbs. And in our toolbox, and I'll show you the toolbox in 2 seconds, in the toolbox, we have a list of action verbs if you need help getting started. You want to make sure that if you're still doing something, that your accomplishment statements are in the present tense, and if you've completed an experience, they're in the past. Now, if you're in a role and there are things that you have completed in your current role, those bullet points are going to be at the bottom of that experience and in past tense. So for example, in my current role, I used to host an alumni panel for our art students. I'm no longer doing that, but I still include that in my current role, but it's the last bullet point under William Patterson University Assistant Director Career Development Center, and it's in past tense. We're going to stay away from personal pronouns, so I, my, us, our, them, their, etc. We don't use that particular part of speech when writing our bullet pointed statements. And the more details that you can provide, the better. We want these bullet points to be task focused. So things that you did, not things that you learned. It's wonderful if you are learning a lot in your experiences. That's what I hope for every person, regardless of where in your career you are. But we really want to know what you did, okay? And I always recommend when you're writing these, think about a couple of questions. Think about what you were doing, how you were doing it, and who you were doing it with or for, okay? The more details you can add, the better, okay? And anytime you can quantify something, you're going to want to do that. So if one of your responsibilities was to meet and try to exceed sales goals, monthly sales goals, we want to know what your monthly sales goals were or what your monthly sales outcomes were. Okay, so we want to know that number. Okay, if you trained new employees in the course of your time with an organization, I want to know approximately how many employees you trained. Okay, so it's the little details that are really going to strengthen those accomplishment statements. Okay, now the longer you've been in a position, the more bullet pointed accomplishment statements you're going to have. But as my rule of thumb, you should never have less than 2 bullet pointed statements for each of your experiences. So even if you've only been in an experience for, say, 2 months, we're looking at a minimum of 2 points. We only put things on a resume that you are either currently doing or have completed. So say, for example, you know that you're going to be starting a position in September. We're going to hold that experience until September when you've started it to add it to your resume. Okay. Little formatting for you. Again, we want the name of the employer, the city and the state, the month and year you started to the month and year you finished. If you're currently in a position, that end month and year is either going to say present or current. And then we need your position title. Okay. Quick note, if you have held multiple positions at one employer, you don't need to list the employer again. So for example, William Patterson University, Wayne, New Jersey, month and year to month and year of your, William Patterson University, Wayne, New Jersey. Then your current position title and the date range that you've been in that position. You'll put your bullet points, then you'll skip a line and you'll put your previous position with your date range next to it. So you're not repeating the name of the employer in the city and the state. That's going to save you a little space on your resume. Okay. I'm sorry, this says no less than 3 per experience. It's 2 or 3. I say no less than 2. This says 3. It's okay. Let's talk about keywords. Okay, so what are they? These are industry-specific words or short phrases. You're going to find them in the job posting or the job description. And you're going to see them repeated. You're going to see them in multiple job descriptions for the same type of position. So for example, I pulled a job. I have one in front of me that I pulled for today. And the phrases that I keep seeing in this are led collaboratively. I'm sorry, that's not what it was. Identify, develop collaboratively, work with diverse individuals and groups. So there are phrases that are going to really pop out to you. It's not things like assist customers. Okay, they're things that are specific to the industry or to the position, and they're things that you will see either repeated multiple times in the posting, meaning the same word. So that job description that I was just referencing, the word collaboratively, was seen multiple times in the posting. So that to me is a keyword that I would want to make sure that I'm including in my resume at some point in my bullet points and accomplishment statements. Okay. So again, you use these, 1, to make it past those applicant tracking systems, and 2, that it highlights that you have the skills and the requirements that are wanted by the employer. If you can relate what you've done in your previous experiences or even in your current role to the things that the employer is looking for in the job description, that's going to increase your chances of making it to the next round, which is the interview. Questions? I see the chat bubble blinking over here on my screen. So Jenna, do we have some questions?
We do have some questions. Ooh, okay, so the first is, which one is better to have, a profile or an objective, or should you include both?
So you only want to include one, you don't need both. And it really depends on, well, it's 2 things. 1, it's personal preference. If you are changing fields, you can use either one. If you are looking to stay in field and you have a good amount of experience in that field, I would say go with your profile. If you're a recent grad, and this is not a dig at anybody, but you most likely don't have enough related experience to include a profile, and you're going to want to stick with that objective. At the end of the day, it's personal preference of what you're more comfortable with, though.
Great. Okay, next question is, how can I word my resume and cover letter as an experienced teacher to appeal to out-of-state job postings? For example, relocating over a few hundred miles.
Okay, so for anybody who's relocating, 2 things. The first is if you have an address, so say you're moving to a different state. So say you're going to be going to Chicago from New Jersey. If you already have an address in Chicago, use that address. It will make you look like a local candidate. Sometimes, not always, this can be more appealing to an employer because then they may say, oh, I don't have to pay for relocation. Not every employer is going to pay for relocation no matter what. But sometimes if you appear to be a local candidate, it's to your benefit. The other thing is, somewhere in your cover letter, you may, especially for teaching, because every state has its own state standards for curriculum, what you may want to do before applying for teaching positions in another state or any type of occupation where there are different kind of standards, regulations, rules, licensure, any of that, you may in your cover letter want to reference that you have begun the process of transitioning your teaching license to your new location, or that you have done some research and you have an understanding of state curriculum, state regulations, and so forth. There's not really a way to do it on your resume. It's going to be more on your cover letter.
Okay. Next question is, if the position you've spent the most time in isn't relevant to the position you're seeking, should it still have the most bullets, or should the related experience have more bullets?
The related experience should definitely have more bullets, but what you're going to want to do in that unrelated experience is highlight transferable skills that will be relevant and useful in the role that you're applying for. So transferable skills are anything that transfers from one position to another and any field to any field. So things like communication skills, both written and verbal, okay? Organizational skills, leadership and management skills, critical thinking and problem solving, analytical skills. Let's see, what else? Anything that really, presentation skills, public speaking skills, teamwork skills, anything that can be applied in any field. And those are the skills that you're going to want to stress in your unrelated experiences.
Okay, great. Under experience, should I bold certain points? For example, the accounting package I've used?
No, I am not a big proponent of bolding words in your accomplishment statements. Again, it's personal preference. We don't recommend it. It's not something that we encourage our students to do. Whether it's bolded or not, the ATS system, it doesn't matter to the ATS system. I don't particularly recommend it though.
Okay, great. Looks like we have 3 more questions here. So the first is, should resumes only be 1 page, or is it appropriate for it to go into 2 pages?
It depends on your experience. So say you're a recent grad and you have no related experience, but you have some work experience, because all experience is good experience, whether it's related or not, because it shows that you know how to be in a professional setting. Even if all you have is restaurant experience, you still are conducting yourself in a professional manner. And it shows those transferable skills. If you have no related experience, we're going to stick with 1 page. If you have related experience, and depending on the field that you're in, you can go to 2 pages. For an example, in higher education, positions that I work in, having a multiple page resume is fine. My resume is 3 pages. And that's acceptable because of the field that I work in. It's really going to depend on the field, and it's going to depend on what your experience is.
Great. The next question is, how do you relay experience and skills when you're making a career change with no experience in the field you are applying to?
So there's a couple of things you can do. If you have no experience in the field, again, transferable skills, very important. In your profile or your objective, mention some of those transferable skill sets that are going to be valuable that the job description asks for. In your cover letter, you want to stress, and you don't have to pour your heart out and give them too much, but you want to stress why you're making the career change and why you're passionate about the new field that you're looking to go into. The other thing is, if you've done any professional development of any kind, any certificates, any webinars, any anything that's related to the new field, you're going to want to make sure that you list that on your resume.
Okay, next question. And we have a couple questions all related to the same topic. So I'll try and summarize. And if I don't address your questions, please re-enter. But the question is regarding, re-entering the workforce after a long period of time and how you address that on a resume.
So there's a couple of things you can do. If you haven't been in the workforce, but you've been participating in organizations or volunteer opportunities, you can list those under experience. So I've worked with some students who are non-traditional age students, and a traditional age student is between the ages of 18 and 24. So we're talking about students who are above the age of 24, who have been caretakers, whether it's for older family members or children, and have now returned to school, but haven't worked. But they volunteer, for example, at their religious place of worship. They sit on a committee, or they are part of the Parent-Teacher Association, or they volunteer in the summer at a camp, things like that. All of that is experience you can put on your resume. Just because you're not paid for it doesn't mean it's not experience. And it's going to show transferable skills. The other thing, and I really do this on a case-by-case basis, and so I don't recommend it for everybody, is something called a functional resume. A functional resume is based on skill sets and not on chronological experiences. We don't recommend it for everybody. It, again, is case by case, and it really depends on how long you've been out of the workforce and what your situation is. When we write a resume, if you have large gaps on it, so things that are more than 3 to 6 months, it's more important to be able to explain those in an interview. For example, I have some gaps on my resume from earlier on in my career where my company downsized and I was unemployed for 3 or 4 months. I can explain that. If you had a personal issue where you were not able to work for a period of time that is greater than about 6 months, there are ways that you can address that. Employers are legally not allowed to ask you if you say, I was dealing with some personal things. They're not allowed to ask you to elaborate on that, and that is your response. So if you have a 2-year gap where you are handling some family matters, some personal business, that's what you say. I was handling some personal business and family matters. So if you have large gaps on your resume, that's okay. We just need to figure out a way for you to appropriately address them.
Okay, great. We've had a bunch of questions come in. Sorry.
My email address is going to be at the end of this. If you have specific questions and are interested in that functional resume, email me directly and I'll send it to you. I'm not going to give it to Jenna to send to everybody, but when my email address pops up, if you think that you would prefer that functional resume, and I'll show it to you in a second, just send me an email and I'll get it out to you directly.
Great.
So I'm going to ask that we hold the rest of the questions. I just want to make sure that we get through the PowerPoint. We have about 20 minutes left, and I just want to touch on a few more points and show you the toolbox and show you the functional resume, and then I'll take a few more questions, okay? So this is our sample resume for our alumni. You'll see there's a profile on here. There's that education, professional experience. There's some leadership. This individual held some leadership positions on campus. There is an activities section at the bottom. I really recommend a skills section as well, and I'll show you a resume sample in our toolbox where you can see the skills. And you'll see at the bottom of this sample, this is our leadership resume for current students or for recent grads. You'll see there's that academic coursework on there. There's also an achievements section. So if you have won some awards, maybe you were employee of the month, you could put that on. There's that academic coursework for recent grads. At the bottom, you'll see the skills section. It is technical skills, so computer skills, other languages that you speak. They're hard skills. They're not things like communication, organizational skills, teamwork. Those are skills, those soft skills or transferable skills are things that you want to include in those bullet pointed accomplishment statements. Okay. Before I get onto the rest, I do want to show you that functional resume sample before I move forward. It is right here for you. Okay. So you'll see there's a summary, education, and there are your skill sets. So it's going to break it down by skill set. You really want 3 or 4, and you want to mention the things that you did that fall under each of those skill sets. So it's not going to be bullet pointing your work history. It's going to be taking from all of your work experiences the 3 or 4 management highlights from your management experience and putting them under that heading. Same thing with sales, communication, leadership, and you can choose what you feel your strongest skill sets are as they relate to that job description. Okay, then you'll put your work history, and it's just the name of the company, the job title, name of the company, when you were there, and that's it. And then you would have a skills section at the bottom. Technical skills section, or hard skills, meaning your computer skills and your language skills. Okay. So that's a functional resume. The focus is really going to be on this skill set portion of it. Again, I don't recommend this for everybody. It's really for people who have been out of the workforce for an extended period of time. I mean, I'm talking about people who maybe have raised kids or taken care of family members for 10 to 15 years and haven't been working. You may not have a lot of volunteer experience. This is something that you might consider. Okay. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. Formatting. Font. We want no larger than 12 point and no smaller than 10 point. If your resume is an 8-point font, it is too small. Okay. Black text color only. You want to single space your document, but use your Enter key to create blank lines, or what we call white space, empty space. Your margin should be no bigger than 1 inch and no smaller than 0.5 all the way around. And as I mentioned before, it can be more than 1 page if the content and your experience is related to what you're applying for. Okay. The other thing I want to, so Jenna, let's take a few more questions about the resume itself, and then I want to talk about Handshake a little bit, which is a really great resource for all of you out there who want to have your resume reviewed by our office and who are job searching.
Okay, great. So there's a lot in here. So I'll select some, and then we can hold some till the end if we have some time. So the first is it okay to list on the bottom volunteer in community or experience?
Yes. So if you have a lot of experience other than that, so let me pull up the toolbox here. I'll show you an example. So this is our, oops, where's the top? This is the Career Development Center Career Toolbox. And I'm going to send this to Jenna. She can send it to all of you, but it's also on our website. And as I mentioned, this is a 60-page PDF, and it includes a section on resumes, cover letters, interviewing skills, getting started with LinkedIn, and then some additional career resources. Full disclosure, we are going to be updating this over the summer, but I would recommend taking a look at this now and then at the end of the summer visiting our website for the updated version. So a lot of the information for this presentation and the images that you saw came from this Writing Your Resume section. The great thing is that after this, there's the action verbs checklist, the action verbs list that I mentioned. It's on page 7. Okay. Here's the resume checklist for you on page 8. You can go through, make sure you hit all your points. Again, there's some of the images. The great thing about this, though, is that the following pages are all resume examples. So, for example, this is a College of Business resume. Now, even if you're an alum, if there are pieces of this that you're interested in using, please feel free. You do not have to stick with our designated alumni resume sample. Okay. So for example, this person has academic projects, related experience, some work experience, but they've also chosen to list their leadership experience without bullet pointed statements, and that's okay. You can do the same thing for your volunteer or community service experience, okay? However, if we look at our leadership resume in the PowerPoint, you'll see that this person's leadership experience has those bullet pointed accomplishment statements. It depends on how much other experience you have and what you want to include on your resume. There is no one right way to write your resume. Okay, it's a representation of you, and the most important thing that I think, though, that you include is if you have related experience to the position that you are applying for, the emphasis needs to be on that previous experience. Okay, if you don't, then you may want to add bullet pointed accomplishment statements about your volunteer work or community service. If you have a lot of related experience and you have a lot of bullet pointed accomplishment statements for those experiences, you may just want to list the volunteer experience and the date, and that's okay.
Okay, great. So another question is, if you're an artist, should your resume reflect that in design?
So yes, there's a couple of fields out there where we do say make it creative. I would say art, graphic design, studio art, graphic design, marketing. Those are really the only fields. Your other fields, you really want them to be a bit more traditional in terms of that. Just be aware that if you're applying for a position related to art and it may go through an ATS system, that artwork on your resume may affect the ATS system. So for example, if you apply for a position through Indeed.com, where, I mean, it's a larger company, you may want to stick with just a more traditional format, as opposed to if you're applying, say, directly to an email address at a museum that is most likely not going to go through an ATS system.
Okay. Do you want to take a couple more? Or do you want to move on?
Sure.
Okay.
No, we can take a few more.
Okay, great. So, what are some ways to make your resume visually appealing or stand out? And it says, I know you said no borders or template.
Yeah, so you'll see here there's a border on this one. That is not really a border. It's just to show that it's on a page. It's not really a border. I don't know why we have it on there like that. I apologize. What you see here is really what we recommend. You want to make sure that you're keeping consistency. So if you are using all capital letters and underlines for one of your headings, make sure all of your headings appear the same. If you're using one type of bullet point for your, let me go back. If you're using one type of bullet point for your professional experience, make sure you're using the same type of bullet point for your leadership experience. Make sure that all of your dates are lined up. Make sure that all of your, on this one, all of the company names are bolded. All of the position titles are italicized. You can really do any of this. Just make sure that you're consistent with it. Make sure that everything is not squished. That's a technical term, squished. Make sure that everything's not squished together. I had a roommate once who loved the way her resume looked, and I offered to take a look at it. This was years ago. And I offered to take a look at it, and it was 2 pages, and both pages were full of text. There were no line spaces. There was no blank space. There was nothing that differentiated her experiences because everything was right up against each other. Unfortunately, she didn't take my advice on adjusting her resume. But I would say visually appealing. Think about a book that you read, and when it is just line after line after line of this very small, squished together text, it gets overwhelming and it's not really visually appealing to the eye, correct? Same thing when you read a resume. There needs to be a point where the reader's eye can take a little bit of a rest, and that's what that blank white space does for us.
Okay, next question is, what is your take on including a picture on a resume?
We never include a picture. If you are applying for an opportunity that requires a headshot, so if you are in television, film, theater, performing arts, you most likely will have a full-size 8.5 by 11 headshot with your resume on the back. If you are applying for any other type of opportunity, the answer is always no.
Okay. So this is in regard to format.
Unless it's specifically asked for. I know in the past, and again, this was several years ago, that there are sometimes restaurants and bars that will ask you to include a photograph. I'm not really a big proponent of that. I kind of feel like there's an ulterior motive behind that, and you really should not be, and I believe it's illegal for you to be hired based on the way that you look for restaurants, but it's really your comfort level. If you are applying for an opportunity that's asking you to submit a headshot with it, that's something in, say, banking, that's a little fishy. I wouldn't do it. But I would say unless it's asked for or requested, we're not putting a picture on.
Okay. This question is on formatting and the bullet points in the resume. So should periods ever be used at the end of each of those bullet pointed sentences?
So here's the deal with the period. If you use it on one statement, you have to use it on all of them. If you don't use it on one, don't use it on all of them. So the answer is yes, you can. But if you're going to use it on one, you have to use it on all of them throughout the entire resume. I personally don't use it on mine because you're leaving out parts of speech and these are not complete sentences. So I don't put periods. I have students and I've worked with people who really love putting a period at the end of each statement. That's fine.
Okay. I know we have just about 5 minutes left, so
I really do want to talk about Handshake really quickly. So Handshake is our career management system. Every student, we launched this just about a year ago. It replaced Trailblazer, for those of you who know about Trailblazer. It replaced Trailblazer. It's the same type of system. So every William Patterson student, current student or incoming student, has an account. As an alum, we welcome you to log on to wponj.joinhandshake.com and create an account. What will happen when you create the account is I am the person who approves those. So I will go in, I verify that you are an alum from the university, and then I approve your account. Again, if you are a recent grad and you already have a Handshake account, if you log into your current Handshake account, you can adjust your information to create it as to, I believe you can change it over to an alumni account. If you have questions about doing it, send me an email. But if you are a recent grad and you go into Handshake, please fill out the first destination survey. That would be super helpful. If you are not a recent grad and you're looking to create an alumni account, please go and request one. I will approve it. What Handshake does is there are employers that we work with go in and post opportunities, and you can apply directly through the site. You'll follow the contact information or application information on each posting. In order to apply for the opportunities in the system, you have to have an approved resume. Alum, if you upload your resume into the system through your profile, somebody from our office will review your resume and be in touch with you if we have any recommended changes that need to be made. Once your resume has been approved in the system, then you'll be able to apply for opportunities. If you try to apply before your resume is approved, it will go into what I refer to as the black hole of nothingness. Nobody will see it. The application will be completed. The employer will never see it. So please make sure that you upload your resume and have us take a look at it. If you have questions about the process of joining Handshake or uploading your resume for review, please let me know. Handshake looks like this. It's going to kick me out. So I'm going to log in from the back end. and just show you what profile looks like really quickly. You can also access, and our dummy account here is William Patterson. You can also access all of our events that the department is hosting, whether they are virtual or in person. So this is what a profile looks like. You'll put a picture, it'll say alum on it, it'll have your education, your major, your degree when you graduated, your experience, okay? You'll be able to upload your document over here on the left-hand side. You'll hit upload and you'll upload it, okay? Under the events tab is where all of our Career Center events will be, okay? And when you click on them, it'll give you all the information. The jobs tab is exactly like, it's kind of like every other job board. You put in your search criteria, here are all your filters, and it will give you the opportunities that are available and how to apply for them. Any messages that are sent through the system, the Career Center gives you some additional resources. This is your basic quick explanation of Handshake. If anyone needs more information, please don't hesitate to reach out. But as an alum, everybody is welcome to create an account and upload your resume for review. If you are a recent grad, meaning May of 2020 or December of 2019, you have 1 year of in-person services through our office, which means that you can do a telephone or virtual appointment with us, and you can schedule that appointment through Handshake or by emailing us at the Career Development Center email address. Jen, I don't know if we have time for maybe like 1 or 2 more questions.
Sure, we have another minute or so. So we do have a few questions here. One is, are there written directions for getting Handshake set up?
I don't believe so. I can double check. Once you go in and you click to create the account, it's pretty self-explanatory. You're just entering some information into it. And it's really the information that's on your resume. It's kind of like starting a LinkedIn profile. You're putting in all of your information. I would say give it a try first. And if you have trouble, send me an email and I'll walk you through it.
Okay, great. The next question is back to the templates, and the question is, if it's saved and sent as a PDF, will the automated system still have issues with the formatting?
I don't think so. I'm not positive. I'm not an expert on ATS systems by any means. I don't think that there will be an issue with the PDF. I make no promises though. I'm kind of one of those people that everything's better in a Word document. But I understand that not everybody has Microsoft Word. I don't believe it makes a difference. But again, I'm not 100% on that. I'm like 85% sure on it.
Thank you. Can alumni email resumes for critique?
No, we prefer that you upload them in Handshake.
Great. And then a couple more questions back to the design. I think this is a follow-up to one earlier. What would you recommend for an art teacher in terms of design?
What I really recommend for people who want to show their artistic is either, it depends on the type of if you're applying for art teaching positions, you could, create a logo for yourself. You could draw a little image, a little graphic that you want to have in the corner. You could do some kind of, you could design a font for your name. Please make sure it's readable though, or some kind of, just something small. Stay away from large images or borders again. But usually I recommend logos. If you really like illustration and that's something you teach your students, you could create a little illustration of a teacher in front of a couple of desks, something like that.
Okay, great. So I know we're a few minutes over the 1:30 mark, so just to be respectful of everyone's time, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But I'm sure we have a few questions that I believe we didn't get through, and I'm sure Jenny would be happy to address those via email.
Yeah, if I didn't get to your question, sorry. Oh, let's go back to PowerPoint. There's my email address at the top of the screen, nessenjupj@wpunj.edu. If you have a question that wasn't answered, please feel free to email me directly. Please do not email me your resume. Please create a Handshake account and upload it, and someone from our office will take a look. And if you send me your resume, unfortunately, my response to you is most likely going to be, please create a Handshake account and upload it. That's just our policy for our alum. Our contact information is, the office contact information is down there at the bottom. Right now, we are all working remotely. We are working, but we are working remotely. So your best bet is to email the office directly or email me directly. If you call, somebody is checking those messages, but you're most likely to get a faster response if you send an email. Our website is at the bottom. You can find our email address on the website. I believe it's under the contact, which is, where's our email address? I believe it's just careerdevelopment@wpunj.edu. I apologize that it's not readily available. I apologize. There's our toolbox right on the front page there if you need it. But you can email me directly if you have questions, and I'll pass it to the appropriate person in our office. Another quick thing, if you have been out working for 5 years or more and would like to mentor a current William Patterson University student through our Pesci Family Mentoring Institute, please let me know. I will connect you with Debbie Feingold, who is the coordinator of that program. We are always looking for new mentors. It is a year's commitment. You have to be working in your field or working out in the professional world for a minimum of 5 years. There's a little bit more criteria, but I can connect you with Debbie and she can give you all that information. Just a little plug for that. And check us out on our social media, because we do a lot of updating on that, about our events and so forth. So we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a YouTube channel with some pre-recorded videos for you. And please let me know and let us know what we can do to assist you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you for this really informative presentation, for your time today. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. We really appreciate it and hope that you found it to be helpful. So
just one quick note, Jenna, if you do email me, we don't work Fridays in the summer, everyone. And if you do email me, please just give me about a week to get back to you. But I promise if you send me an email, I will respond to you. And again, thank you all so much.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.